cursed abandoned oil rig. What started as a daring adventure to explore an abandoned offshore rig quickly spirals into a nightmare for a group of friends. Drawn by the thrill of the unknown, they uncover a hidden underwater facility pulsing with secrets and an eerie, unexplainable presence. As mysterious signals, cryptic voices, and a monstrous entity emerge, the group is ensnared in a twisted loop of time and terror. With each step deeper into the rig's labyrinthine depths, they confront not only the horrors lurking within, but also the fragility of their own resolve. This is a tale of survival, sacrifice, and the desperate fight to escape a place where time itself is a trap. I stood in the doorway, watching as the others moved around the room, each person unpacking or settling in. I had a moment to breathe, finally getting a chance to take it all in. The rig, despite its age, was in better shape than I'd expected. The floors were surprisingly clean, even if the place felt a bit cold and sterile. There was an eerie quiet that blanketed the crew quarters, the kind that makes you feel like you're not quite alone. Suddenly, a low rumble vibrated through the floor, and I felt a faint current of air, almost like a whisper from the sea itself. A moment later, the vent above me blew warm air into the room, like the rig was waking up from a long slumber. I stood up quickly and flicked the light switch by the hallway. The overhead lights buzzed to life, casting everything in a harsh, sterile glow. We all took a beat to look around, our eyes adjusting to the light as we tried to make sense of our surroundings. The others seemed content to settle in, but my mind kept drifting back to something Julian had said earlier. He and Mark had gone to check out the control deck, and when they came back, Mark seemed off. He'd looked distant, like he'd been lost in a moment of déjà vu, or maybe something more unsettling. But when I asked him about it, he brushed it off like it was nothing. Still, there was something about the way he kept zoning out that made my gut tighten. I pushed it aside for the moment and tried to shake the feeling. Just as we started to settle into a more comfortable routine, I noticed the girls were talking to Julian in hushed tones. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but it looked serious. When I moved closer, Savannah glanced up at me and quickly changed the subject, but I could tell something was off. Maria, however, didn't seem so keen to drop it. She caught my attention and asked, "So, I don't want to derail things, but what about that signal Julian mentioned?" My stomach dropped. I had no idea what she was talking about. I turned to Julian, but his expression soured immediately. "It's nothing," he muttered, not looking at anyone in particular. But Maria wasn't backing down. "No, it's something. Last night, Julian said there was a signal coming through. He saw it on the oscilloscope in the control room, but the audio was off. He didn't think it was important, but I thought it might be worth bringing up." Julian's eyes widened, and for a moment, I could almost see the panic in his face. He looked at Maria like she'd just set off a bomb. "I didn't think it was a big deal," he said quickly, trying to smooth things over. "It's probably just some random data from the rig's systems. Signals like that happen all the time, especially on rigs like this. It's nothing to worry about." But Mark, already on edge, didn't buy it. He shot to his feet, his face turning red. "You didn't think it was a big deal? Julian, we're trespassing here, and you didn't think a signal, coming from who knows where, was worth mentioning?" I stepped in before it could escalate, trying to calm the situation. "Hey Mark, relax. Maria didn't know. Let's just focus on what's important. Julian, you said it was probably nothing, right?" Julian, looking uncomfortable under the pressure, nodded. "Yeah, that's all it is. We can go check it out, but it's not going to lead to anything." Mark, however, wasn't letting it slide. "If it's nothing, then why not check it out now? And if it's something else, if someone's monitoring us, we need to know now. This isn't just a joke anymore." We all followed Julian as he led us back to the control room. The narrow catwalks and metal stairways seemed endless as we climbed higher, the distant sound of waves crashing against the rig's legs echoing in the background. When we reached the top, Julian hesitated for a moment, his hand on the door handle. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. Mark's anger was barely contained, and I could see how it was affecting Julian. He wasn't acting like himself. His confidence was slipping, and he seemed lost in his thoughts. The door to the control room swung open easily, the handle having been mangled by Julian's bolt cutters the night before. The space was massive, cluttered with old equipment and dusty consoles. I could see immediately what Maria had been talking about: the oscilloscope, its needle still faintly twitching. Julian walked over to it and flicked a switch, the screen lighting up with static before revealing a blip in the graph. "See? It's nothing," Julian said quickly, almost too quickly. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The rig had been silent for so long, yet here we were, finding things that didn't add up. As I scanned the room, a chill ran down my spine. Something wasn't right. As the doors of the lander slammed shut behind us, I sank into the hard, utilitarian seat across the capsule. The craft was built for function, not comfort, solid and imposing. But that wasn't my concern. We sat in silence for a moment, the soft buzz of the overhead lights the only sound. I stole a glance at Maria, sitting between Julian and me, her eyes wide with fear. She was trembling, silent tears tracing down her cheeks. We hadn't debated long before agreeing to descend. The lander was secure enough, watertight. If we reached the bottom and decided it wasn't safe, we could return to the surface at any time. Mark had suggested a smaller group go, but Savannah was quick to point out the dangers of splitting up, especially in an unknown situation like this. Time was another factor. The voice on the broadcast had been clear. There was no time to waste. The cord holding us up suddenly slackened, and for a moment, we dropped slightly. Maria whimpered, clutching Julian's arm tightly. Mark winced, but Savannah seemed oddly at ease. Minutes passed. The rattling ceased, and I felt the cool touch of metal against my back as we dropped below the surface. The descent was smooth, uneventful, at least on the outside. Inside, the gravity of the situation was pressing down on us. We were trespassing on what looked like a hidden, dangerous facility. If we ignored the voice, we were condemning someone to possibly perish. If we didn't help, we risked being exposed. Either way, we didn't have a choice. Another jolt, and the lander stopped with a groan. A slight shift beneath our feet told us we had docked securely. Suddenly, a voice crackled from the PA, muffled and distant, but still audible. "All right, perfect. I knew you'd come. Your capsule is connected to the facility now, so I can guide you without relying on the radio. The docking portal will finish sealing soon, and the porthole will open in front of you. Watch out for the ladder, it's slippery." Mark, ever the skeptic, stood up. "Who are you? We're coming down to help, but we need to know what we're walking into. What is this place?" A long silence followed before the voice returned. "I should mention, there are no microphones on your end, so I can't hear you. I'll be able to guide you with cameras, though. As for who I am, I don't have an answer yet, but I promise you'll get it when you arrive. Good luck." Julian shot up, shaking his head. "No way. I'm not going any further. This is getting too weird, and I don't trust whoever's behind that voice. None of you should." He lunged for the button to return to the surface, but before he could press it, a hatch opened in the floor. A steady trickle of water seeped in, filling the space. He gritted his teeth and pressed the button anyway. A mechanical beep followed, and the PA chirped again. "Warning! Surface re-entry not possible at this time. Please disengage from dock at sublevel 01. Depressurization estimation, 28 hours. Savannah stood, incredulous. 28 hours? It took us 5 minutes to get here. What do you mean 28 hours? I winced. It's the pressure. The deeper we go, the more time we need to adjust before returning. Damn, I should have realized it earlier. So, we just sit here and wait? Savannah's tone was sharp. If we ascend too quickly, I swallowed hard. We risk serious injuries. Our bodies won't handle it. Mark looked at me, eyes wide. And it'll take over a day to come back up? That leaves us barely any time to get this guy and get back. We're out of food and water. Maria had already moved towards the ladder. We all stared for a moment before she turned back, determination in her eyes. 10 hours or not, we'd better get moving. She gestured to the ladder. We followed her down, and when I reached the bottom, I took in the surroundings. We were at the end of a circular hallway. A set of stairs led down to a platform, and a bulkhead door loomed ahead. The rest of the group had already begun walking down the hall. Julian, however, turned to follow them, but I caught his arm. "Jules, hold up. We need to talk." "Now?" He looked exasperated. "We don't have time for a chat. Make it quick." I let go of his arm, and he faced me, irritation etched across his features. "Look, none of us signed up for this. What was supposed to be a fun trip has turned into something dangerous." "Yeah, no kidding. I didn't know any of this was down here. Same boat as you." He gestured around the dark, cold hallway. "I know. That's why we brought you along. You were useful, you'd pull your weight. But we're not in your territory now. You've got a different role." He scoffed. "What role is that, huh? As long as we're down here, your only priority is keeping Maria safe. If something goes wrong and I'm not around, you swear to me, on your life. You'll protect her." His anger faded, replaced with a quiet resolve. "Yeah, man, of course. Same goes for you too, though." I nodded. "Good. Let's get moving." We caught up with the others, who were already by the bulkhead. They opened the door, and we entered. The air was damp and metallic, the hum of distant machinery vibrating through the walls. Flickering lights cast long, distorted shadows across the floor. As we moved deeper, the low, mechanical groans of the facility resonated underfoot. Mark stopped, scanning the area. "This doesn't make sense. That generator up top couldn't power all of this." Julian frowned, listening to the faint noises echoing down the hall. "No way. This is something else." Maria looked between them. "What do you mean?" Julian grunted. "The generator was meant for emergency power. Barely enough for lights and heat. But this is way bigger." Mark crossed his arms. "We thought the generator might last, but we weren't sure. Offshore rigs like this usually run on diesel, which holds up better than gas. We were hoping it'd last just enough for us. But this is different." Maria blinked, confused. "So where's the power coming from?" Savannah smirked. "I'm guessing it's down here." Julian looked toward the corridor ahead. "Has to be something bigger." "Something bigger." The words hung in the air, unsettling. Maria glanced nervously at the others. "Is that bad?" There was no answer. Savannah grinned, sharp as ever. Only one way to find out. She turned and continued down the hall, and the rest of us followed. We walked for what felt like an eternity before reaching a fork. A large chamber opened up ahead, with 3 corridors leading off in different directions. A rusty sign labeled the passages. Sub-level maintenance, left. Primary research wing, right. Habitation and offices, straight. "Which way, mystery man?" Julian muttered, his eyes scanning the walls for any hint of guidance. Before anyone could respond, the intercom sputtered to life. The voice was even more distorted than before, making it impossible to decipher. Savannah tilted her head. "Do any of you understand that?" "I can't make it out." Through the static, one word emerged, faint but clear. "Right." I looked at the others. "Did you hear that?" "He said to go right." Mark squinted at the passage. "Primary research, huh? Maybe the poor guy got stuck monitoring data." Maria's eyes lit up as she pointed to the floor. "Footprints." Savannah pulled out her flashlight and illuminated the ground. Faint, briny footprints led in the direction of the research wing, seemingly hurried. As we traced the trail, it abruptly ended against the wall. Julian peered down the hall, flashlight in hand. "Looks like someone's been here recently." "Yeah, I think they've been to research," I muttered. "Then right we go." The research wing stretched ahead, dark, foreboding, the dim lights casting erratic shadows along the walls. The air smelled dank, musty, as if this place had been abandoned for far too long. Faint echoes of machinery hummed in the distance. We followed the water trail cautiously, our footsteps clanging against the steel floor. Suddenly, a burst of static ripped through the intercom, the voice frantic, desperate, but the words were drowned by more static. I do not. I exchanged glances with the others. What's he trying to say? Maria whispered. No idea. He sounds scared, Mark replied. I swallowed. He said, right before, now. Now he's saying, do not. My voice faltered. Julian finished, his face tight. Do not. We stood there, the air thick with silence, suffocating. Mark pointed toward the door ahead. The tracks go in there. Let's at least check it out before we turn back. I didn't think we had the luxury of turning back anymore. We struggled to open the massive door. Once inside, the room opened up into an enormous, cavernous space. It was the heart of the facility. And there, in the center, stood a massive, pulsating mass of something. Alive. It was moving, quietly, waiting, watching us. We stood frozen, staring at the thing. And then, the voice returned. You're too late. Drip. The sound was unbearable. Each drop echoed, cutting through the thick silence that had settled between us like a suffocating fog. Time was slipping away, but none of us had the strength to move. Maria sat, her tears staining the cold floor as she mourned Julian, her face pale and tear-streaked. Mark stood rigid, his gaze locked on the shadowy corridor we had narrowly escaped. Savannah was pacing, her breath coming in quick, shallow bursts, muttering under her breath like she was trying to keep herself grounded. Drip. The voice on the intercom had fallen silent. Whoever had been speaking through it knew by now that we weren't responding, that the panic in their voice had reached us, but hadn't moved us. We couldn't afford the time to listen any longer. Drip. Savannah froze mid-step. Her wide, frantic eyes darted to the ceiling. Can someone please shut that thing up? It's too much. I need to think. Her voice cracked as she looked around, almost desperate. I found a crumpled t-shirt in my bag and tossed it onto the floor beneath the drip, as if it would make any difference. But the sound, relentless and sharp, kept punching through the air, as if reminding us of the truth we were avoiding. You are underwater. You are not safe here. Maria wiped her eyes, standing up with a sudden determination that made my heart skip. I know you saw it, Eli. He was alive. Julian was back on the ledge. I'm going for him. I shook my head, exasperated. You were back too, Maria. This isn't just about Julian. If we go, it won't just be one of us that dies again. Mark finally tore his eyes away from the hallway, confused. What do you mean, he's back? And Maria? You were gone? I let my head rest against the cold metal behind me, trying to explain through clenched teeth. Maria. When it took her the first time, when she vanished, something reset. And it wasn't Julian who got pulled back then, it was you. You were gone, but now you're here. It happened again. When we closed the door, it was like time twisted. Julian ended up alone. Mark stared at me like I had lost my mind. I don't know what you're talking about. Nothing grabbed Maria, dude. It was just Julian. Savannah frowned, stepping closer. Mark, you were right there. She was in front of you when it happened. You and Julian both tried to grab her before she disappeared. But when we got to you, she was right back with us. Mark looked between the two of us, confusion written all over his face. No way. I remember Julian getting grabbed, but not her. Maria's face twisted with disbelief. You're saying that Julian came back too? That happened to me too. I nodded grimly. Yeah, don't you remember? Maria stood there, silent, her lips moving as if to speak but finding no words. Savannah sighed, frustration building. So what now? Eli's right. There's no way we're going back to research, but we still have, 7 hours before it's too late to get back to the surface? Mark whipped his head towards her, his voice rising. You want us to stay down here? We don't know what else is waiting for us. Your watch is busted, by the way. There's only 5 hours left. And are we just supposed to forget about that tree-sized tentacle that crushed Maria's boyfriend? That thing down there. It shouldn't even exist. We need to get out now. And just leave whoever's stuck down here? Savannah snapped. The voice sounded scared. We came down here to help, and we have to try. We need to help. Mark shook his head, his voice shaking. And end up like Julian? I don't think so. Maria stood tall, her eyes burning with anger. You coward! You'd let him die for nothing? If whoever's stuck here knows how this place works, if they can reset the loop, maybe we can get him back. We need to keep going. Mark rubbed his temples, frustration boiling over. And if you're wrong? If the voice doesn't want to play nice? Then we tried, Maria said, her voice steady despite the chaos around us. We were silent for a while. Savannah resumed her pacing, and Maria began to prepare herself to move. Mark slumped against the wall, glaring at nothing. Finally, the intercom crackled to life again. Please hurry. I'm so sorry about your friend. I tried to warn you. I tried. My equipment. It's failing. The water's rising. I won't be able to use the intercom much longer. Stick together this time. Mark was on his feet in an instant. He stormed up to the speaker, his fist clenched. Who the fuck are you? One of us is dead because of you. We don't even know if this is worth it. Give us answers now. Savannah stepped behind him, placing a calming hand on his back. He can't hear us, Mark. Mark shoved her hand away, storming up to the small camera on the wall. With a sharp motion, he flipped at the bird, making sure the voice got the message. The intercom buzzed again. The voice strained. I know. Please, I'm trying. But unless you come get me, Julian will be gone forever. Maria bolted upright. How did he know Julian's name? She turned to the camera, shouting, mouthing the words as loudly as she could. How did you know his name? There was silence for several long seconds, then a weary sigh from the speaker. Sub-level maintenance, Maria. I'm in sub-level maintenance. Please save me, then we'll talk. Maria didn't hesitate for a second. She grabbed her flashlight and darted off down the path to the left, with Savannah right behind her. I moved to follow, but Mark grabbed my arm, stopping me. We don't have time for this. We have less than 5 hours until we're too late to get back. I wrenched my arm free, anger flaring. Let me go, Mark. I have to find my sister. We still have 7 hours, not 5. Mark's grip loosened, but he didn't look convinced. I'll be here waiting, but I won't let anything else get through that door. You have 15 minutes. I nodded quickly, then sprinted after Maria and Savannah. The bulkhead door to the junction slammed shut behind me, and I could see Mark through the small window, lifting his wrist and mouthing, 15 minutes. We ran down the narrow, rusted hall of maintenance. The air was damp, and the dim lights flickered overhead, barely illuminating the worn metal walls. The constant hum of machinery was growing louder, vibrating through the floor and into my bones. Savannah stopped just ahead, catching up with Maria. Maria, listen, she said, her voice urgent. We can't waste any more time. If he can help Julian, then he can help us too, but we have to hurry. Maria, determined, didn't slow down. I don't care. We're getting him back. I caught up to them just as we reached the door marked Primary Pump Delta. Savannah took a deep breath. You're sure this is the right one? Maria nodded, her hand shaking as she turned the rusted manual valve. It groaned, and the door creaked open to reveal a damp, cold room filled with tangled pipes and cables. The temperature dropped as we stepped inside, and the eerie silence seemed to stretch forever. The intercom buzzed to life again. Almost there, at the end of the hall, the door on the right. I've lost camera coverage, but there should be service microphones up ahead. I looked at Maria. We're close. Mark wants us back in 10 minutes, but we need more time. Savannah, can you go back and tell him? Savannah nodded, then pulled Maria into a quick, tight hug. We'll do what we can. We'll try. With that, she turned and sprinted back down the hall, leaving me with Maria, who was already heading toward the stairs. I cursed under my breath and followed her down. The walls were coated with years of grime, rust creeping along the edges of the metal seams. We descended further, the air thick with the scent of oil and decay. A sign overhead read, Sublevel 03, and I couldn't shake the sense of foreboding that washed over me. As we reached the bottom, we found a small room. On the far end was a locked door, reinforced with thick metal plates. A red panel beside it featured 3 large valves mounted on the wall. Maria frowned. This must be it, the triple bypass. The intercom buzzed again. You're here. Good. The only way to open that door is to turn all 3 valves at once. It's a fail-safe for keeping things from escaping. I exchanged a glance with Maria. There's only 2 of us. Static crackled before the voice broke through. Only 2? Yeah, I said. Savannah went back for Mark. Silence. Then a sharp, shaky breath. I told you not to split up. Get back upstairs. Go now. Maria's face went pale. What's wrong? What's happening? I didn't wait to answer. I grabbed her wrist and bolted. 5 minutes later, we were back at the junction. The bulkhead door crashed open behind us. Empty. Mark was gone. Savannah was gone. Panic surged as Maria's voice trembled. Where are they? They didn't leave, did they? A pained, guttural wail echoed from the hallway. A raw, desperate sound. Savannah. We ran. The corridor stretched endlessly ahead of us, my breath ragged in my chest. The wailing grew louder as we neared the end of the hall. There, hunched on the floor, was Savannah, clutching something in her arms. My stomach twisted. Number. The body was hollow, dried out, the skin clinging to brittle bones. The skull was tilted unnaturally, its clothes unmistakable. Mark's clothes, his backpack, his boots. Maria screamed. Savannah collapsed against the wall, sobbing. He was here. He was just here. Maria shook her head. No, he... I stumbled back, breath catching in my throat. My eyes found the wall beside me, where dozens of deep scratch marks ran across the metal panels. And there, scratched into the surface, the words, I waited for days. You never enlightenment is not something you achieve. It's something you remember. It's the recognition that you've always been whole, that the light was never outside you. It was just buried under layers of doubt, fear, and distraction. The moment you stop chasing it, it's there, like the sun breaking through clouds you forgot were temporary. Every tradition, every practice, every moment of stillness is just a way to clear the fog, not to build something new. You don't become enlightened. You unbecome everything that isn't you.